credit, venture accelerator, I think that was 125,000. You know, they're all similar in the Bay Area.
That is good ecosystems.
It is.
As we like to have such an ecosystem. Okay, you are so your stage of commercialization is so advanced, more than us, because we have not easily to even attach to financial parts, for example, whether we see angel funds or even bank itself on the technology variability, whether how you judge these things. And then I've been talking to a lot of bankers and VCs. They say that technology cannot be sold, it's no cost. Either failure, then they don't know what to do with it. So that's why they don't want to finance, because they are doing something like that. But probably only some certain very specific, which is very rare in Thailand, are running this. This is one of the good rare cases. That's why I asked him. Okay, and then the ecosystem of having such a thing that you have talking about, that we don't have ecosystem like that. And then probably maybe another, because we haven't geared up on rotating the wheel yet. I mean, that's why we need to do rotating the wheel to have energy to run on that you already have.
So these are angels, and I'm told there are 7,000 that look at our technologies overnight around the world, but I have no idea where that number comes from. I think what they mean is it could be 7,000, but it actually isn't. But we are told that the angels, for the most part, are entrepreneurs from that discipline. And so they have already done the same, and they want to coach new teams. So as I understand it, when Silicon Valley was an orange grove, the first investable technology was IT and ITC, and they did well with that, and they made money. So they stayed around for this next wave, the highly risky wave of biotech, and that maybe still hasn't paid off. But then there were other just local enough successes to keep them interested. So I think another thing about Silicon Valley is just the culture of collaboration and sharing. It's all about the networks and who you know, which is why putting more things online so that people can see what people look like and how they're pitching, in addition to what they're pitching, is important. But there already was a spirit of collaboration. It's kind of like a melting pot, great research universities next to vast sources of private capital, and then an innovative culture and culture of sharing and helping each other. I mean, not making everything proprietary. We shouldn't patent anything just to have a number of patents grow. We should patent it if it would give a company an inducement to invest. Had we patented Unix, what would be out there in the private sector, because each company had to come and get a license to every little piece. So.
According to the things you just mentioned about the program Left to Market, does it include a kind of like the investment or the fundraising for anything related to translational research in order to increase the visibility of the tech or the increase the potential, let's say?
Not yet, but it's right next to, I showed on the begin.berkeley.edu website, the funnel, and that's kind of on the left of the funnel when it's still big, but right next to those programs are the programs where the first money can come in, including the NSF-funded Innovation I-Corps. Because Berkeley is the hub of the Bay Area I-Corps, which also consists of Stanford and UCSF. And the NSF is investing in projects that started as a grant and then went through one of these programs or one of the curricula, and it simply satisfies the criteria for getting an investment by them. and then a subset of all of the teams that go through the general 1-week I-Core program, which is based on the lean launchpad methodology, will go to the nationals, and they'll get $50,000 for that. The NSF also pioneered at Berkeley the lean transfer class, which is like lean launchpad, but based on tech transfer opportunities. So the office has already made an investment in the IP, but we're trying to advance it through these teams of students and that need experiential learning opportunities, and a member from the private sector to guide them. All right, time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I didn't get a chance in the morning talk to describe the new campus-facing funds, because even though we are in Northern California and there's so much venture capital there and private capital, still it's 1.5 hours from Sand Hill Road in Palo Alto. So some external fund managers decided that it would be beneficial to have specific funds focused on deal flow from UC Berkeley. And they were very entrepreneurial, and they figured out how to raise capital and then an investment model where they are sharing some of their profits back to the campus. So they are traditional 2 and 20 funds, 2% management fee, 20% carried interest. They have limited partners and general partners, but they will share 10% of the fund carried interest back with the campus. In the case of the Chemistry Catalyst Fund, to the Department of Chemistry. In the case of the SkyDeck Fund, to the SkyDeck Accelerator. The SkyDeck Accelerator is where the most mature startups go, because they have to have a product in order to be accepted, whereas in the incubators, the startup doesn't have to have a product already. And even the companies that are accepted in SkyDeck might have a product that might not be their final product, because they're there to learn how to get funding. They're going through the Berkeley method of acceleration, and there are other programs to teach the Berkeley method of entrepreneurship. So right now, if a startup is accepted in the SkyDeck Accelerator, they will receive $100,000. They'll receive $50,000, and then if they do well, in month 4 of a 6-month tenure in the accelerator, they will get the second $50,000. And the fund will have the co-investment right, the pro rata right, to invest in that company's rounds of financing. I also didn't have time to mention the lab-to-market programs that are designed essentially to help bridge the gap when someone just doesn't know if it's time to do a startup, or if they if what they have is worthy of investment by the private sector. So there are teams of students getting together, sometimes a law student, but always a business school student and a PhD student, to work on a specific project and to do market research with input from a person from the private sector. The most developed one is the Clean Tech to Market, C2M program, specifically in the clean tech space. And you can see online some of the deliverables. There are some summaries of what these teams have come up with. And these are not all outward-facing results. They might simply inform a professor of what they should do next. Some do help startups that are existing or just now spinning out. We've learned that we really should have more lab-to-market programs, specifically, for example, in medical devices and other fields. Did you have any questions from the talk this morning? Sorry it was so fast.
I want to ask more about the Citrus Lab.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you. I want to talk more about the Citrus Lab. How would it help startup commercialize or do R&D on the products, and how would it help with the collaboration with the professors there?
Yeah, it's great. The Citrus Foundry is for hard tech with really heavy instruments, big instruments. And 2 years ago, the University of California equity policy changed. So we can take equity in startups in exchange for space. The Citrus Foundry will take 2% of equity from a company that they give space to. And they have mentors and advisors there to help the startups. But they're expected, to advance and then find other space. They can't stay there long term. Oh, I think the battery died. And so it's specifically for that type of technology.
So you said hard tech, not hardware.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a more general category, and I actually learned that term from Citrus. So. They themselves refer to it as hard tech. Sorry. So they're one of the physical spaces where startups can go to get these networks of advisors, and then also meet capital providers, and then just find other collaborators to join their team. They're generally not companies bigger than, say, 2 or 3 people on the team.
What kind of investors visit the other sectors?
Often angel investors. In fact, angel investors are the most numerous, and of course the earliest investments after personal savings and family. And they're so numerous in the Bay Area because they themselves are former entrepreneurs. And many are entrepreneurs of startups that spun out of Berkeley. And they just like being around the young startups and helping them. And there are some entrepreneurs and residents who are looking for the next company to join. They may not have more than, say, $25,000 to invest, or they might have nothing to invest. They're just looking for their next opportunity.
Who are these entrepreneurs and residents? Are they basically like recent grads, or are they like experienced entrepreneur who just bored, or?
Yeah. Generally, they're experienced entrepreneurs, but we're not managing them and we're not employing them. Because if we were to bring them into the office and then have them go to these places to volunteer or coach, it could be, could be considered to be a conflict. Because the minute they're taking money from the company that they join, then they have a conflict. So they're simply hovering around, but they're very valuable, and we'll give them office space so that they can offer to help companies.
And as a Bangkok-based enterprise or university, is it possible to invite these people to perhaps come and educate us, perhaps for some of our startups or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm sure. They go all over the world, and it's in the usual way. And the scientists go and engineers go all over the world because they collaborate globally. I mentioned that we have research institutes and joint research institutes in Shenzhen, and also in Singapore and the Philippines. But I didn't mention also that any startup that is accepted into the Skydeck Accelerator will still get the $100,000 in funding, whether or not it's our own IP from Berkeley. No, it looks like it's on. Okay. So, and we are getting many countries from overseas. Do you think that there is something from, you have entrepreneurs and residents here, and you have angel investors?
Not as many as in Berkeley. Not as educated and well developed as those in Berkeley.
And would you tell them specifically what you want to learn from them? Or just you want to have a larger population?
No,
but not necessarily a style.
From my understanding, the tech and startup ecosystem in Thailand doesn't have that kind of deal flow. The investors here are less risk taking than compared to the Bay Area, of course. The startups here are not as well educated, not as well trained as those in Berkeley. So I think if there is like some potential of collaboration, you can tap the potential here. You found new market, you found new distribution, you found new talents. Everyone wins. So I'm just trying to find. Oh, thank you. So I'm just, as a Berkeley alum, I'm just trying to find a way to perhaps further this discussion.
Right. Well, for your angels here, they might want to look at pitch.berkeley.edu, a website where we have posted all of the presentations from the pitch competitions.
Nice.
That were videotaped. The reason we did it, I'll get to you, is that we had a lot of angels who said, there's so many different pitch days to come to, but if I'm only interested in one field, I might have to wait until the afternoon to see that one team. And I would rather not drive all the way from San Jose to have to wait until 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock to see the one team that I was interested in. This way they can sort according to area of interest, and only those videos that are relevant will come up. And importantly, they see who is pitching and how they pitch, because they invest in people. And see what's coming out. Database to do that. It would be one thing to do that to see if it makes something more licensable to this private sector. I think it would be more important to do that to see if we can help our own portfolio companies with little bits and pieces that are also, within UC. These are things that we could do with better information and better organization. Whenever we have a jointly owned property, either one campus or the other takes the lead in patenting and licensing so that we're not competing with the joint owner.
In agriculture, but what about Berkeley? What is your main technologies?
Engineering, biotechnology, big data, chemistry, materials. A new area of interest in startups is plant-based alternatives to meat. And Berkeley in particular, the Northern California and Berkeley in particular, is attracting startups, and we are also spinning off startups in that field because we have a ready market there of vegetarians and vegans, and also just we have early embracers, but we also have the biotechnology industry there already. So clean meat, for example, while it's not plant-based, is cell culture, growing muscles without the whole animal. It's just repurposing existing biotechnology. And so there are specialized venture capital firms that are investing in new startups just in the plant-based alternative to meat field. You might know Impossible Burger is one of the most well-known, and it had a biochemist, Pat Brown from Stanford, who started that company, and they recently added hemoglobin from legumes because the rhizobia make hemoglobin, leg hemoglobin, to these patties that look and feel and smell and taste like beef grilled patties, as they realized that that was a component of the taste, and the FDA approved it as an addition. So also there are 2 dedicated incubators for plant-based alternative to meat startups with their own entrepreneurs in residence and mentors from that industry, including from the big flavor companies in Switzerland and Germany. And another aspect of that field is advanced manufacturing, because if you think about the breakfast cereals that are made from extrusion, like the circles and the squares, with this other field, you need to use the whole grain, including all of the tough bran and other parts of the of the grain because you need to retain the nutrition. But it's a non-trivial problem to figure out how to retain enough moisture so that the extrusion works and everything looks uniform. And it's just an area that is drawing on many fields at once, including public policy, and other fields. Will there be a label for a plant-based alternative to meat, as there has been for USDA organic label? And there are sociological researchable topics. How do you bring these down in price so that it can go into the food deserts, urban areas where people don't have enough fresh vegetables in their diet, or they're urban dwellers, and the only store they have is a package store with liquor and cigarettes, but not a grocery store. So it really is tapping into every research department on campus, interestingly, and especially with the proximity of those specialized incubators and the captive funds, it will only grow. And then there are companies that, big companies that are meat companies, such as Tyson, that are just creating, even though they sell chicken nuggets, they're creating something that tastes the same but isn't animal meat.
Consortium. So could you please give a little bit more detail about the industry consortium? So is there any criteria that industry can join, and then what they are doing in the consortium?
Well, we have two different types of things. Professors and postdocs can consult with industry to share their expertise and know-how, and those are agreements between the person and the company. The university doesn't sign that because we own the IP, but we don't own everything that they know. Until it's turned into IP, we don't get an assignment to it, so they are making those private arrangements. And the companies know what our restrictions are, if, and the professors and the other employees are essentially not working on work that they do for the company for which they consult in the lab. They're separating that outside work from what they do for the university, usually with federal funds and other funds that we manage. But were you mentioning the industry affiliate programs? The second, yeah, those were the programs that were started by people who said, these are multidisciplinary areas and there's no money for it. Can you help us find money from industry for those? The oldest is the Berkeley Sensors and Actuators Consortium, which was also started with a little bit of money from the National Science Foundation. The professors get together and they say, we have this new field. They create something that would be like a marketing brochure that is sent out to companies and say, if you pay this annual membership fee and sign this membership agreement with our office, we will organize 2 symposia per year. And each company can send 2 people to hear what's going on and see who the students and postdocs are that you might want to hire. So they put on these, they either have presentations or posters or something. The companies generally will sign a non-disclosure agreement to have access to that. And then if any IP arises from this money from the pooled memberships, we contact each corporate member to say, so-and-so had an invention disclosure and it was funded by this money. Are you interested in a license? And they might license, but in general, the other things that they're getting are more valuable than the IP. But often companies will be sitting in an industry affiliate program presentation and they'll realize, I just saw something that one postdoc is doing that's so relevant to what I'm working on in my company. I should break out of this pooled mechanism. I should do a sponsored research agreement with that lab to a specific scope of work and budget with that person because I want exclusive rights to something else. But for having been there and in the industry affiliate program venue, they might not have known that. I mean, they might have gone to the same scientific conference or read a paper from that person, but it's causing other types of collisions once they're on campus to see what else is going on. That one engagement type with industry might result in another one simply because they're on campus. Our facilities, then we own it. But many, many people in engineering and EECS like the open source software licenses, including the Berkeley Software Distribution License, which just gives permission to the private sector to use the code, and then we're indemnified. We don't want to be sued for not putting any strings attached to the use of their, or for not charging for the use of their access to the code. And we do have a very open source culture, in part because of our proximity to the IT companies and ICT companies, that many of which were founded with Berkeley employees. So the university isn't monetizing every piece of code written by every author on campus, but we are benefiting those companies, and those companies benefit us by giving gifts or supporting research or donating equipment in many ways. We do have on our website a link to the types of open source software licenses we can sign and those that we can't. And we'll share that with people who want permission to use one or another of those licenses.
In a case where a company sponsors research, do you have any experience that they don't prefer open source? Or?
Some don't, because they want, they simply don't want to share anyone else to have benefits. This project, as though it's still your academic project, and you can see that it's not working, and you have to do something else. When they're not willing to listen to even their investors, that's a problem. And we understand why it happens, because it's their baby. But through the programs, both on the begin.berkeley.edu site and also on the Innovation Ecosystem site, teaching entrepreneurship. Most of the programs are teaching the entrepreneurs to do customer discovery and to figure out what the marketplace is telling them. Despite what they think it is or will become, it doesn't matter if no one will buy it. And so people just get wedded to things and are less resistant to change than they should be, for the wrong reasons. Other, lessons learned, you just do have to take some risks based on instinct, because sometimes the companies just don't realize that it is the next new thing. As Kathy and I both told stories of things we couldn't license that turned out to be blockbusters. Every university has that. In the meantime, you will be criticized severely for taking a risk on it.
May I have one question. Does university have to encourage the researcher to do a disclosure, that invention, or a reward or commission or something like that?
Not so far, but we really should have a form of recognition. We haven't had time yet even to have a dinner. It is the right thing to do, to celebrate your inventors and recognize them, even if it's a showcase of successful technologies. And students are always asking how they can gain experience in the office. There is a role for making displays of what has come from your university and what it looks like now, and so that anyone can see it. And it's either the physical thing or a little story or a running loop of it. We definitely should do a much better job of explaining what has come from this process that started with research and ended up as a product or service and then benefited Californians and the world. You need people to do that. Do you think, what are your royalty sharing policies here with inventors? 20%? Yeah, in the universities.
I'm not sure in my university.
So Kathy mentioned that, and yeah, Tsinghua has 72. And she said that she didn't think that it would induce more disclosures. But for us, it's an unproven hypothesis. I mean, we must follow the policy that the UC office of the president, the University of California system comes up with. I don't think that most academics are doing things primarily for financial gain. They wouldn't otherwise stay at the university.
Yes, in Thailand, there are many TLO have the issue of turnover of the staff.
Yeah.
Have you experienced this? And if not, what is the criteria of UC Berkeley to maintain good people?
I think one reason why we have so many people who haven't left is that we require people who have 2 of the 3 backgrounds, science, business, and law, and some of them have all 3. So they've had several careers. And also, it's very expensive to live in the Bay Area, so it would be difficult for someone who hasn't bought a house yet to take that job. And we pay more than many licensing offices, but it simply would be hard if you were at that stage of your life to buy into the Bay Area plus educate your children. So we tend to have people who just love technology and have done either all 3 or 2, science, business, and law, and are coming back because they love to be the first person to hear about something new. Or it's not only about maximizing your salary.
And because to live in the Bay Area is understandable. And how about other UC kind of offices? Do they have any kind of same system as you do at Berkeley?
I don't know. You heard that Stanford, which isn't UC, of course, won't hire lawyers to do the job. So we still hire lawyers. It's just that they have to have more than just the law background. I don't know what the hard, fast rules are for the other UCs, but we meet so frequently and we're all so well connected that I think our practices are somewhat similar. Plus we're drawing from the same region for our talent. What we don't do is take someone who hasn't had, the 2 categories of backgrounds and or doesn't have a real customer focus because we are service units and we have to have the attitude that you have to, sometimes you have to take the blame for things that you didn't even do. And it simply is a service unit. You know, we are providing services and it is fun, but it's not only done for business purposes as you would in a company. And also at a university, there are politics, you know. So you have to have people who understand that there are many shades of gray, and it's not like a company where your job, it's very black and white. You know, if it doesn't make a profit, we're not going to do that. Well, at a university, we might, even though it doesn't make a profit, because we want to do it, and so does the professor. The shades of gray, sometimes people aren't comfortable with. I guess I have one data point. A long time ago, long time ago, a lawyer who wasn't making a good transition to the job because it's somewhat frantic. You know, it's just a lot of stuff coming at you all the time. You know, and you have a list of things to do, but you can't even do it because emergencies. So someone who was well suited for trusts and wills because of their personality might not be the best fit for what we do. But anyone who loves technology and science, engineering, and helping people generally thrives. And many of the people also came through UC Berkeley. I mean, I was a postdoc at UC Berkeley and was already there and just really loved the region. And knew people as collaborators first before they were customer inventors. And then in the startup area, it's just nice to be in Northern California where we have private capital, because it's this confluence of the private capital next to great research universities, next to these cultures of sharing and innovation and risk-taking that is kind of a magic combination that helps. I think we're out of time. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I think we're exhausting you too much already. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
And some offices have in-house patent agents, or the Lawrence Berkeley Lab have that capability of just finding whoever would be the best to draft. And then, we might pick someone because we know they do a good job, and then the chemistry isn't right with the inventor. So we have to find another patent attorney, even though that might be the best. And and this can happen in so many ways. Sometimes the inventors are just so offended because they were told that something's obvious. Well, the Webster's dictionary definition of obviousness. But after that, essentially, the goodwill between the patent attorney and the inventor is down. The relationship goes downhill, and we have to transfer. We also don't like it when a law firm has a practice of giving associates most of the work. It's clear they're double charging for training them, and it's clear they're not really paying attention to what they're doing, quality checking all of their work. Do you have experience with in-house drafting?
So we draft all of our patents in-house. We have a team of 2 Thai patent agents, actually 3, although one only does administrative work management. And I'm a U.S. patent attorney. So I handle PCTs and U.S. applications. Unfortunately, even though we're smaller than Berkeley, we've still got enough inventors